Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In this video I am going to demonstrate how you can use Power Automate as a basic web server. This came up because somebody on Twitter asked a question. Hey Power Addicts, in Power Pages can I show a list of documents from a SharePoint document library for anonymous access? And I replied to him to say you can do it with, I don't know about Power Pages, but you can do it using Flow. So I am going to demonstrate how you can take a SharePoint document library like this and use Power Automate to serve it to the public internet with anonymous access like this. And you can click on any of these files and open the PDF straight from Flow. So it's a good fun flow to build. It's actually two flows. So let's just get into it and I'll show you how it's done. So I'm going to build one new flow and we'll call this list anonymous files, anonymous files, and I'm going to choose the trigger when a HTTP request is received. And even if this, even if this particular usage doesn't interest you, there are loads of good reasons to use this technique that we're going to show in this video, and it might give you some ideas of other things you could do to share data on the web. So I'll choose when a HTTP request is received, and I'm immediately going to open my flows again into another new tab, and I'm going to do another one. And this one's going to be called Send PDF File to Browser. And there is a good reason why I'm building both at the same time, which I will show in a moment. So I'm going to start with this one that sends the PDF file to the browser, but I'm really not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to put one action on. And I'm just going to put trigger outputs. And the reason that I am putting one action in is so that I can save this and then the URL will be generated. Okay, so I've got my URL of this flow. So I'm back to now to the flow where we are going to list the files. And I'm going to add a new compose action here and I'm going to rename it download URL. And I'm just going to paste that into here. So now I'm going to do list folder from SharePoint, and I'm going to pick my folder, and it's called anonymous access. And then I'm going to do a select action. Do you know what? Before that, I'm going to change the options here and I'm going to change that to a get. I just want to trigger this flow even though it's not going to do anything yet, just so I can see the outputs of that list folder. I just want to remind myself how it looks. So I'm just going to trigger it just by hitting that, and obviously there's nothing back yet from there, but we will get to see the output of list folder. I'll take the output and I'm just going to take a look at that. So here we have the outputs, and as we can see, the first entry is a folder called forms, which is a hidden folder, and we can see this Boolean value is folder is true, whereas all the other files read false for that. So we need to get rid of those things, and so we need the name, the display name, and we'll get the size and the date modified. So let's go back to this flow. I'll edit it now. So do a select and we'll do from list folder. Name and name, display display name, last modified, actually I have size and then last modified. Okay, and now I'm going to also filter that to get rid of that folder. So we'll have body from the folder, and then we'll have is folder is equal to false. And now I'm going to change the source of my select action to be the output of the filter array. And that will now produce us, it won't send us anything to the client, but it will give us a select action that we can work with. So actually, I've kind of done this a bit wrong. So I'm going to change this now so that we don't have this display name field. And I'm going to change this one to represent a hyperlink. So I'm going to do A equals href. Now this won't work properly, but it will work properly eventually. So I'm going to do a href, and then I'm going to put in the download URL from up here, and then I'm going to put an ampersand. Let's say file name equals, I'm going to put item expression item name, and then I'm going to do target equals underscore blank, because we want when we click the hyperlink for the PDF, it'll open up in a new window, and that will do for that. Then I'm going to do another item, and we'll do display name. So that's what will show up in the hyperlink. And then I'll do a /A to finish off that hyperlink. So let's check that. A href. It looks alright. It might have an error there, but we'll see. So I'm going to do a create HTML table, and the source of that will be the select. And this isn't going to work properly, but we will sort that out. And I'll show you. No, I'll wait. I'll show you in the browser why it doesn't work, but we'll fix it easy enough. So then we can use our response action to start sending some information to the client, to the browser. Okay, so for the body of our response, I'm just going to put the HTML table. This is completely invalid HTML at this stage, but it's actually going to do something that I don't want it to do on purpose. Okay, I was expecting it to do more than that. So we obviously had an error in our flow. Wrong flow. Yeah. Okay, so I spelt, there's an error here, and it's saying that I've put, I've asked for the property display name, and it doesn't exist, and the one that does exist is actually display name without a space. So let's just correct that on my select action. In there. So I think that will work now. Yeah. And as you can see, it's just output a load of HTML as text onto the page. And there is a good reason for that. But what I wanted to show you was we can see here the table looks sound. As we move on to our column with the hyperlink, everything I put in has been replaced with escaped characters. So I tried to create a hyperlink field, and the less than sign has been replaced with and less than semicolon. The quotes have been replaced with and quot, and the greater than sign, which will be around somewhere, has been replaced with, there it's and greater than semicolon. So that's no good to us as a HTML table, and this output is no good as HTML because it's the content type is wrong. So we can fix that pretty easily. If we come down to here, we'll fix the HTML output first. So I'll put a header in, and it will say content type text/HTML. And this will now, the browser will attempt to render it as a HTML page. And that's better, but you can see here this still isn't right, because in this column, in the name column, it's got the HTML printed as plain. HTML is being output on the page instead of being rendered. So after my create HTML action table, I'll put a compose here, but we could put it straight into the response, but fixed HTML table. So what I'm going to do is an expression, and I'm going to replace the output of create HTML, and I'm going to replace replace and LT, and I'm going to replace that with a less than sign. So that'll fix those. And I'm going to replace and GT semicolon with an actual greater than sign. And I'm going to wrap that once more, and I'm going to replace and quot with a double quote. Now it's not very easy to see that expression, so I'll stick it into Notepad, and you'll be able to see it there much easier. That might not be perfect, but we'll see if it works. It's lucky I put it into Notepad because it's just vanished from the editor. Okay, so instead of putting having my body as the output from create HTML, I'll use the fixed HTML table there. So let's take another look at it. Okay, so that's looking much more sensible now. It's not particularly attractive, but it is sensible. I don't like this last modified column either, so I'm going to fix how that looks. I'm going to change that. In fact, I'm just going to change that to modified. And then I didn't like the formatting of it. Yeah. So let's just go format date time. And actually, do you know, I just want the, I'm going to have DDMM YYYY, and then that'll do actually. So let's take another look. Okay, so we've got the name, the size, and the modified date, and this is now a valid hyperlink. There is an error there. That target equals, I can see. I'll just copy that link address and paste it in here. You'll be able to see what I'm seeing. So here's the path to my flow. I've got a URL parameter on it, which is and file name equals downgrade rights. But then I've got that target equals, so I'm obviously missing a quote somewhere. So let's go and have a quick look at that. File name equals that. And I didn't put a closing quote there. And that should fix that. So let's just go and double check that. Copy that link. Okay, that looks better. Okay, So before we move on to downloading the file, let's just spruce this up a bit. First of all, the HTML isn't valid. I've just literally just got a table there and the table looks pretty horrible. So let's fix that. Okay, so next let's search for Bootstrap HTML table. And we'll get some nice examples from Get Bootstrap. And what I'm going to do first of all is just go to Getting Started and take this starter template here. That looks all right. And I'm going to go back to edit my flow. Instead of that outputs there, I'm going to paste that in. And yeah, that's okay. So I'm now going to put the output from my table here in the middle of the page here after the heading where it says Hello World, and we'll change this to say SharePoint public file access. And this is probably going to be quite difficult to work within here, so I'm just going to stick this into Notepad. And while it looks alright, I'm going to change the title as well to SharePoint Public File Access. And the rest looks okay. So we've got some references to Bootstrap and jQuery, which we're not going to be making much use of, but we could if we wanted to extend the functionality further. So if I save that now, that should change the appearance of the page a bit. Okay, so that's neatened things up a bit. Let's go back to Bootstrap and go back to the tables. And I'm just going to pick a slightly different table style. I like the ones with the striped rows. So I'm going to change and use this table class here. So I'm going to go back to my flow, and I've got my outputs from the fixed HTML table. So what I'm going to do is going to replace dynamic content fixed HTML table, and I'm going to replace the table tag with that, so I get the table striped CSS class. Okay, that looks like I've missed out an S somewhere as well. There. Okay, so that's looking better. And you can see now, so I'll just quickly demonstrate also. This will also, I'll demonstrate two things. If I resize my window to like an iPhone or an iPad, you see that still works okay because we've got Bootstrap. And it looks not too bad at all. The other thing that I'll quickly show you is I'll take one of these files and just delete them. So I deleted test2.pdf. If I come back here and refresh, test2.pdf is gone. This doesn't do anything at the moment when we click them, and we're going to sort that out now that we've got like the front end done. So right at the beginning of this, let's get rid of that now. Right at the beginning when we started, I created a new flow called send PDF to browser. So the list files flow will have executed lots of times every time I've hit that page, and the send PDF to browser, well, there's nothing there really. So let's edit this flow. And change the options to be the method we get. So if we go back to here and click on one of these, we won't get an error, but we also won't get any response. But if you remember in that flow, I did put the trigger output, so we should have an execution of that now as a result of me clicking on that link. So if we go and have a look at the trigger outputs, we should see that there was a query and the file name came through. third-party activities PDF. So I'm just going to take that for now and put it in Notepad, so I've got a copy of it. And then I'll edit my thing here, so peak code on there. So this time I'm going to use trigger outputs, queries, file name. And let's rename this to file name. And now I'm going to do get file content. I suppose that one, not really sure. And then I'll go to my test site there and select a file. I'm just going to hard code this for 1 second. So let's just pick one, this downgrade rights one, and then pick the code. So here is the path that it's been supplied with. And so what I'm going to do now is delete that. And as we can see, that was supplied with a string like that. So this time I am going to put my file name as outputs there and pick the code of that. So it's just outputs file name. And then I'm going to come over to here, just put together a quick expression. It should look something like that. And then a comma, outputs PDF file name. And that should do it. So I've hard coded in that anonymous folder so that you can't sort of navigate around. And I'm just going to test that to make sure that get file action works. Yeah, okay, so there's the PDF content. And, well, there's not really a lot else to it. So now we can go to here. I'm not sure if we need to convert that base64, but I don't think we will need to. So I'm going to do a response action because we need to now send something back to the client. And I'm going to do headers content-type will be application/PDF. And then the body will be the output of get file content. And there's one other thing I need in here, which I forgot. How we can copy these headers. Okay. There's a mistake in there, but we'll fix that. Okay. So on the way back, when the file's on its way back, part of the request was that this would only work with PDF files, but we could make it dynamic. But because it is PDF only, we can just do content type application PDF. And here we set the content disposition so we can set up the file name. And that's just coming from the query string. And I could just get it from there. In fact, I don't really need that file name part anymore, but we'll leave it in. So I'm just going to put the file name outputs there. It's just a little bit cleaner. And then in theory, and only in theory, that should be a working thing. So let's have a look, see if it works. It probably won't, but let's see. Refresh the page and let's click on one. Yeah, and there it is. So let's have another look at another one. It's downgrade rights. Yeah, and that works great. And obviously you can then go and customize this page as much as you like using any external resources or plugins. I did this originally with a jQuery grid, But I've sort of covered that in another video, so I thought I would take another perspective on it and do it via this method. So I hope that even if this particular use case doesn't suit your requirements, that this gives you some good ideas for things that you could do with the when a HTTP request is received action, and begin to use Power Automate as a web server, as a basic web server, to provide external access to some of your internal resources. If you've got an idea and you are struggling to implement it, reach out to me and I will see if I can do a video on that as well. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.